Welcome to today's professional learning session, brought to you by Global GEG. While we're waiting for the broadcast to start, in the chat, please enter your Twitter handle and where you're from. Also, start connecting with other educators. During the session, as questions come up, please add them to the YouTube chat and we can address them during the session. Don't forget to subscribe to the Global GEG's YouTube channel to find out about other upcoming sessions. We hope you enjoy this presentation.
And good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are across the globe joining us on GEG tonight. Very pleased to be here. This is the third in our series of episodes, and I'm joined tonight by Gustavo from the team here at Text Help as well. Gustavo's going to give us a wave, but you're going to be hearing a lot from Gustavo as we go through tonight. So really pleased about the fact that I'm not doing all the talking for a change, but you may or may not be pleased to know I will be back tomorrow night. And tomorrow night, the stroke afternoon, I'll be focusing very much on PDF Reader. So we'll be going back to some of the things you might know and love about Read and Write. We'll be hitting up PDF Reader. And then after that, Friday, the last session of this week is Fluency Tutor. So we'll get back to literacy. So last night, and yesterday we were looking at Equatio stroke Equatio, as some of us said on the call, but it's Equatio. And we've got a different naming challenge for you tonight, because last night we were looking at Equatio in and around numeracy and maths and that extension. And tonight we're actually going to be looking at another one called WriQ, and we're going to be focused very much on writing. So the reason I say it's similar to last night where we had our Equatio and Equatio is sometimes as Gustavo and I travel around the globe virtually at this point and talk about WriQ, people call it RIC. So we're going to stick with WriQ tonight, I think, Gustavo. And that's all about giving you guys access to an extension. And that extension is going to help with some really cool stuff like automating marking for written work in Google Docs, for helping provide powerful feedback, and also giving you a way to have a look at how your students are progressing with their writing as well. But don't forget, we also have free for teachers. So Gustavo, if you can move on the slide there, just the next one. I want to give you this link, text.help/FFT. So two things that we've talked about already during this week have been Read and Write, the literacy toolbar, simple Google extension, and also Equatio that we went through yesterday, Equatio for maths and science. Both of those are in our free for teacher program. So in our free for teacher program, just go to that link, just use your institution or school email address. Please don't use a Gmail address. We won't be able to give you access, but you can get both of those tools there at that link. And as I've mentioned before on previous sessions, do keep an eye out for the end of the sessions, which finish up on Monday. We'll also be sharing for Google Innovators and Google Certified Trainers a very special message in and around what we're able to provide you here from the team at Text Help. And do watch out for your community information coming directly from Google on that if you are indeed a trainer or innovator. The extension that Gustavo's going to go through tonight, WriQ, is a little bit different, and it's not covered under our free for teachers program, unfortunately. But Gustavo will be sharing with you how you can download that directly as an extension, get stuck in and use it straight away today with all the premium features that you might need. And then he'll finish up to tell you how you can get access to that more longer term to trial it with your students. So I'm going to introduce my colleague and friend Gustavo now. So Gustavo is... I really need an automated clicker for you, Gustavo. I need to be able to press some magic button to move those slides. But Gustavo has a very special job title in Text Help. I'm a tech strategist. I'm the teaching and learning guy from my perspective. Gustavo does something very similar to me, but he focuses only on this WriQ extension. And for lots of you, you may well not be familiar with WriQ, and that's really what we want to take you through the extension tonight and show you what it can do for you. So I'm going to hand over to Gustavo now. Gustavo, you look a whole lot smaller than I do just on the screen there. I'm not sure if that's a seniority thing or if that's just you couldn't get a better Bitmoji. I
It's
just
related to
don't
how
know.
much. It's related to how much we speak in these things, Patty.
um, the good thing, we're all inclusive in text help. The good thing is Gustavo has a completely different accent. I'll let him explain that one as we go through. So Gustavo is based with me in the Belfast office, the headquarters of Text Help. But I'll let you explain your background there as you go through, Gustavo, and share all the wonderfulness of WriQ and how that extension helps the writing process tonight. So I'll see you again at the end of the broadcast. So over to you,
That's great.
Gustavo.
All right. Thanks, Patty. I can't believe that's all you're gonna say. This is amazing. Well, hello everyone. It's really fantastic to be here today. I'm very excited. It's my first time talking to a GEG group in English. I've had the chance before to have a chat with some of you in Spain and Mexico in my previous role in those regions. So as Patty said, my accent is a little bit conflicted, we could say. I am from Peru, so my main language is Spanish. I lived there pretty much my whole life. I lived for a few years in Mexico. So if there's anyone from Mexico on the line, I really loved Mexico. What an amazing country! I lived there for 3 years. I got some of the slang and the accent, which is too cool not to do it. And then I moved to Northern Ireland. For the last 3 years, I've been living here. It's a beautiful place as well. And you've heard Patty for a couple of days, so it's inevitable that my English is getting a bit funny. So it's somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, I like to say. So bear with me, and I'll promise I'll do my best effort to speak clear, loud, and slow. It's not going to be perfect, but I'll give my best. I am the WriQ specialist at Text Help, and we're going to talk about WriQ. So yes, it's WriQ. You can call it Rick if you want, although we prefer WriQ. And as you can see on screen, it's about marking, it's about feedback, and we're going to go into more detail and speak about why we're focusing in those areas. But first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the main goal of WriQ. So number one, as Patty said, WriQ is an extension, a Chrome extension. I'm sure all of you are super familiar with this, and you will identify WriQ in your extension bar as this little W or double check. Depends on your brain. If you see a bat, you may see a W. If you see butterflies, it might be double checks. And right now on that screenshot there is gray, but when you're actually using it, you're gonna see it in green. And we're gonna see it in the demo. So if it's green, it means it's active and working. If it's in gray, it's probably turned off. And if you don't have it yet, all you have to do is go to a Chrome store and download WriQ from there. It's that easy. It just takes a few clicks, as you know. So if you have some time to do that now, go for it. After you download or add WriQ to your extensions bar, I highly recommend you to register, because once you register, you're going to have access to all the premium features of WriQ for 30 days. So I highly recommend you not to skip that step. It's just a form, so it's going to take you 2 minutes, and that's all you have to do. After the 30 days, if you like WriQ, which I'm sure you will, and you would like to try it for a longer period of time, we do a lot of pilots with districts and schools. So all you have to do is drop us an email and we'll get you sorted. If you guys are in the US, I'll put you in touch with our team there. You probably know Mark Schwartz. He's one of the masterminds behind WriQ. And if you are somewhere else in the world, most likely you're going to be dealing with me. So I'll be more than happy to give you a hand with that. Okay? Very good. So I'm going to move to my next screen for the first big question. What is WriQ? First of all, WriQ is about one thing. It's about improving student writing. As simple as that. Sometimes we overcomplicate the explanation of what WriQ is, but that's what we want to achieve. Okay, so we want to help students and teachers to achieve that goal. So we focus on three main areas to achieve that, because you can imagine like it's an endless topic. So the areas where we're focusing on are feedback, motivation, and tracking progress. All right. So feedback. I'm not going to tell you how you guys should be doing feedback, because you are the experts. You do this extremely well every day. So no, it's not about that. But what we're doing with WriQ is trying to simplify your lives a little bit. I'm sure that for the last year, when you started working in a hybrid environment or completely remotely, there was a huge challenge. How do you give feedback if you're not face to face? There are thousands of tools out there. There are so many ways for sharing feedback to students that actually that can be overwhelming. And then I mean, we could have a 3 hours conversation right now if we could open the microphone and hear how you guys have been giving feedback on written work to your students during the last year. So we're trying to standardize something here to give you a method, to give you steps so you can organize an effective and meaningful feedback. Also, that's going to help the students to know what to expect from the teachers, ideally from all the teachers from one district, for example. And WriQ is going to give you data, so you can cherry pick those metrics that WriQ has detected automatically, and you can build a personalized, effective, and meaningful feedback for your students, and everything in just a few steps. So that's the feedback part. Obviously, feedback has a big impact in the motivation of the students, right? And also, I'm talking a little bit about helping you to do things a bit faster. So closing that loop faster is going to motivate students as well. But we'll see as well that WriQ also has a section which promotes the independent work of the student. We have included metrics there that will nudge the student in a way that hopefully will motivate them to write more, to get more engaged with their own writing. And just as any skill, the more we write, the better we become. So that's the idea behind the motivation part. We'll see that as well. And finally, I've talked already, or mentioned already a few times, metrics and data. So all of these things that WriQ is detecting, analyzing while you're assessing, it's doing a lot of calculations in the background, a lot of metrics that didn't exist before, now are going to be available automatically in a dashboard. So you're going to have a lot of information available at your disposal about your students' writing. You will be able to analyze how they are performing, how they are progressing over time, potentially what students are maybe staying a little bit behind and require some extra help. That's super powerful. And I'll show you the WriQ score, which is a very, very promising metric because you'll see the power behind this in a little while. And all of this, keeping in mind something extremely important, and that's why we have that little green text helper there at the bottom left around papers and everything. We know that you guys are extremely busy, but all the landscape today is extremely challenging. The workload is huge. And we want to make sure that whatever we create, whatever we design, is there to help, is there to enhance what you're doing, but without overcomplicating things. The learning curve has to be, that can't be steep at all, and we have to integrate with things that you are already doing. So if we fail to do so, please let me know. I'll share my email later on. Any feedback around this is extremely important. So number one, we decided, well, this will be number three almost. What we decided is to develop something that worked with what you were already doing. So we didn't want to create a whole new platform that where you had to work separately and then import things. No, we just wanted to integrate us where you are already working in your actual workflow. So WriQ, you'll see, is integrated with Google Docs. Students will continue to write in Docs, and you folks will be able to assess using Google Docs. Or if you're using Classroom to assess, you will be able to open the assignments and the documents, and WriQ will open in Classroom as well. So you don't have to leave your workload at any time, okay? So that's crucial. Something very important that I just want to make sure that I communicate. So 2 more slides, and then I'm going to show you the actual tool. This is the last part of, if we can call it theory, this is the last part of the theory. All right, so what is WriQ? I already told you the mission of WriQ is to help improve students' writing. And what is it more from a product point of view? Well, WriQ is divided, or we can divide it in 3 main parts, 3 main areas. It's one extension, but it has 3 different areas. One is the teacher experience. So that's pretty much where you will, the part of WriQ that you will be interacting with most of the time. We'll talk about that. Then we have a different phase of WriQ, which is the phase that students will see. It is a student experience. So remember, it's the same extension, but it has like two different profiles, teachers and students. And then all the data that we can collect from both areas will go to the dashboard, which is pretty much a website. So those are the three components. That's easy, but many times teachers start using WriQ, and after 3 months, they discover that there was a dashboard or that there was a student experience. So we have worked on making sure that the onboarding of the tool is more clear, but I'm sure this is time well invested to share this slide with you guys. All right, so in a little bit more detail, the teacher experience is that part of WriQ that has been designed for you to assess student writing. This part is about assessing a written piece of work. So you're going to get some metrics that WriQ will calculate for you. You will be able to use rubrics, and you will be able to build a personalized feedback for that student. So that part of WriQ is composed of 3 steps that we're going to check. So it's going to be consistently 3 steps for any subject you're working on. Then we have the student experience. So you can guess that this is a part of WriQ that shows the student the feedback that the new teachers have shared with them, but also is that part of WriQ that with a little bit of gamification is going to nudge the student to get more engaged with their own writing. And finally, we have the dashboard. So as I said already a few times, all the data goes there, and we're going to check that out as well. So that's it. That's all the theory. That's all the slides I have to share, I think. Yes, that's it. So what I will do now, I will show you the tool. All right, so I'm going to minimize my screen. I'll leave that for the end. And I'm going to just show you a Google Doc. This is an example Google Doc, okay? So this is a document that, let's say, a student shared with me, whether using Drive or using Classroom, but this is the piece of work that the student has worked on. So as I said, guys, here on top of in the extensions bar, you have WriQ. It is in green because it's active. If I click on it, it's going to go gray, and it's going to tell me that it's going to be in standby mode, pretty much waiting for you to reactivate it in the extensions bar. So I'm going to click on it again, and that's going to pop up this little sidebar or mini sidebar here on the right-hand side. Yes, it's showing it. Yeah, it's there. So now I can open that. That's going to open WriQ, and right away you can see that WriQ has done 2 things. 1, it has underlined words in the document, and 2, it has calculated some metrics here. So as a teacher, I don't have to do anything WriQ related here. All I have to do is read the text, but at the same time, I already have some interesting insights that WriQ has calculated for me that I didn't have before. So what are those metrics? Number 1, word count. Well, I mean, that's not, we're not gonna earn any prize for that one, but it's nice to have it there. It's a good starting point that we can correlate to the other metrics. So we have vocabulary age. That's the first super interesting one. That represents, or that tells me how mature the vocabulary that the student is using is. And it's going to range from 6 years old to 20 years old, okay? From 6 to 20. In this case, it's in the top of the range. The vocabulary age is 20 years old. But imagine the potential of that vocabulary age metric. So we've seen that students that start using WriQ, many of them get super engaged with the metrics. And after using WriQ for 1 week or 2, they suddenly put a massive effort in the vocabulary because it's encouraging to see that metric going up. You can decide if you share that metric with the student in case you're worried about that being a demotivator as well. That's part of building a personalized feedback, okay? But let's say you want to share it, that could be a huge motivator for the student. Also, we've heard comments during lockdown that a student had, for example, 10 years old of vocabulary age in average, and suddenly the peak went to 20. And that was obviously the parents feeling very, very engaged with the writing that day. So there are very many things you can figure out there. but it's definitely a very interesting metric to set goals to work with the students. Then we have the time on task. The time on task simply represents how much time the students have actively worked on this document. Actively, that's very important. If I leave the document open, it's not going to count the time that it's been open without me doing anything. So guess why you've got a 2 minutes metric on screen? Well, it's 9 p.m. in Belfast, and I wasn't going to write 1,000 words ahead of the webinar. Sorry. So that was a copy paste, as simple as that. But it's much more than that. Yeah, it tells me a copy paste, but it can tell you as well if a student is extremely productive and in a very short time in a very short period of time is producing an amazing piece of work. It's with high quality and great metrics, or the other way around. One student, or two students, a group of students are taking much longer than the average of the class. So that helps you to identify potential students that are struggling, that might require some extra help, right? So again, if we put it in context, it can be very, very powerful. And then we have the accuracy. The accuracy, because I have my WriQ set to a UK, in the US, in many other parts of the world, you won't see the acronym SPAG. In the UK, that's spelling, punctuation, and grammar. That's why it's there. And it tells me that 92% of the words in this document are correct, while the other 8% is composed by errors. What errors? Spelling, punctuation, and grammar, 47, 16, and 17. And these errors are underlined in the same colors in the screen. So now you know where those colors come from and what they mean. So you can imagine the amount of time, this is where a big part of the time saving comes from, that you're going to save if you're using WriQ and you want to share feedback to the student around spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Even if you are a subject teacher and you don't tend to focus on literacy because it demands a lot of time, for example, in 1,000 words, mark all those errors, you can still include it in your feedback without that representing any extra work for you. So your feedback becomes more compelling, more meaningful for the student. Okay, so that said, this is the first stage. Remember I said for assessing a document with WriQ, we've created a workflow of 3 steps. This is the first step. I don't have to do anything, just read the metrics. What I can do though is if I don't agree with some of the errors that WriQ has highlighted for me, for example, JP Morgan is a proper name, I can click there, left click, and just ignore it. And WriQ will get that feedback and becomes better and better. It learns from this feedback, and eventually JP Morgan won't be marked as an error. So same thing, you can feedback a few things that you don't agree with, and that's going to update the totals. But we're really working on this being very, very accurate, so you don't have to spend time on spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So once you read this, you go to stage 2. Stage 2 is a rubric. Okay, so in this workflow, we have included the rubric so that you don't have to jump somewhere else, and so that the student also gets everything in just one piece of feedback. So you don't have to go to a sheet, you don't have to go somewhere else for that rubric because it's part of this process. So I have to select what rubric I want to use. So number 1, I tell WriQ what year this student belongs to. So I can say year 10. Remember, I have my WriQ set to the UK. In the case of users in other countries where you use grades, you're going to see grade here, not year, and obviously it's going to match the level. So for the UK, I would say year 10, and that opens a few options for me. Let's select another one, so maybe it gives me some other options. Yeah, well, there's one more here. So when I select a year, WriQ will show me those rubrics that come by default with the tool. In this case, 3, narrative, informative, and opinion. But it will also show me the rubrics that I have created and that I have added to WriQ. In this case, I have one for year 8 that's called my first mark scheme. So what I want to tell you is that you can upload here any rubric that you use. anything, okay? And it's going to be part of this workflow. So I'm going to select for this demo just informative, and I will click next. So now WriQ shows me the rubric. This part is not automated. Content belongs to the teacher. You have read the text, and all you have to do here is fill out the rubric. Again, this is fully customizable. This rubric has 4 criteria. It will have 2, 8, 10, up to you. And each of the criteria has different levels. Again, these names are a reference. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be just 2 levels, 6 levels. And for each of them, I have a description when I click on the plus. So what we have done is we have taken the table to this format here so it can be part of our workflow. Okay, as simple as that. And when I fill out the rubric, WriQ is going to do the math for me behind and calculate a score. So all I have to do here is fill out the rubric, and I'm going to say for focus, grade level, I get a tick. For organization, above grade level. For development, grade level. And finally, language, above grade level. So that's it. I have filled out the rubric without going anywhere else. I didn't leave the document. And then I go to the final screen, the third screen, by clicking continue. All right, water. 2 seconds, please. Or tea. Okay, so in this third screen, what I have is the following. Number 1, I have a summary of the metrics that WriQ detected for me. Okay, so we already covered all of them, so I won't repeat them. But what is very interesting here is that you can select what metrics you're going to share with your students. Okay, so maybe you don't want to overload the feedback with all these metrics, and you just want to build a story. Just share some high-level feedback with 1 or 2 takeaways, probably linked to a goal that you have been working on together, and that's going to be much more meaningful. And remember, there's a big positive impact in supporting your feedback with data that is measured automatically and that the student can track in time. So I can build a story here. So I could say time on task. In this case, I'm not going to share that. Word count, I don't want to include that. Maybe what I want to highlight is that the vocabulary age actually is very high. So maybe we've been working on this, and actually 20 years old was a goal, and that's a very positive thing that I would like to highlight. So I'm going to leave vocabulary age, and then in terms of accuracy, maybe I just want to leave spelling, because even though the vocabulary age is fantastic, we still have to work on the spelling because it's probably too high. That's just a story that I came up with right now. Okay, but that's the idea. You build that feedback, and then you support your message with this information. Also, you have the rubric. So now we have a score of 88, so that can be part of my story. And I have in nice, engaging visual colors the achievement level of the student for each of those criteria. So once I have all of this full picture, I can go up here and type a message for the student, a personal message, ideally supported by all these data. So again, it's 9:30 now, so I'm just gonna say, good work. I hope that you are better than me for giving feedback. I just want you to see where that goes. And there's something else on the screen that I'm skipping here, which is the WriQ score. I will explain that in a little while. I just want you to remember that it was here and that it's a big part of the feedback, and that, well, the number is not relevant. But I will talk about the WriQ score when we get to the dashboard. It's going to make more sense, okay? So 3 steps, metrics, the rubrics, and my personal message. When I'm done, I click save, and that's it done. So we're creating a workflow, standardized. We want to create consistency on both sides for you teachers and for the students, so they know what to expect when they get feedback from you. And I can see that Patty just popped it up there.
Popped up. They can't keep me any quiet. They can't keep me this quiet for this long, Gustavo.
I was wondering.
I was thinking about something just as you were going through that. So I'm going to put you right on the spot now, and I want you to do me a quick favor, okay? So if you close your WriQ window for me, okay? So close your WriQ window and
Completely?
yeah. So just close that. Yep. So take that off. So WriQ extension now gone at this point in time. And what I just want to show people, because I think sometimes when we both do these demos, you kind of, because we're explaining everything, you kind of miss just how super fast it is. So all I want you to do is refresh that document. So just refresh that document. Okay. So think about this, guys. You refresh the document, that's come in from a student. You're going to open up WriQ, and you'll see the little circle bar on the right hand side there is going through the process. So if you open that tab, Gustavo, you'll see that in the time, hit rescore. This is just because Gustavo had already scored this. So this is how quickly WriQ is going through that document. So imagine one of two things. Either you've received this in as a share directly from your students, or you're in the Google Classroom workflow and you're in the marking window and you come to your first piece of work. The minute it opens in that marking pane in the bottom to provide feedback, WriQ is going to open in the background. And in literally a couple of seconds, all of those statistics that Gustavo, you've talked about come up. I just thought it was important to show people just how quickly that is. So, and then if you go through the rubric now and then very quickly do the rubric part, and obviously we're missing out the small detail that you do have to read the content in order to be able to make an informed choice on the rubric, and hit continue. Some quick feedback there, and save. Okay. So I know you're going to talk about this a little further, but the other thing I wanted to show for those of you who are thinking about some more visual feedback, so perhaps you put this in your classroom workflow. If you insert that, you can insert the feedback directly into the document. Gustavo, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I should be right. I should really know that, to be fair. So the documents, so the feedback is actually there in the document. So I just thought it was useful to show that. And one of the things that came up just on the chat channel there, Gustavo, if you can just scroll down to the words in the text on there. Actually, I want to see it pre-feedback. So we have the underlines of the spelling, punctuation, and grammar. You can maybe just refresh that, rescore it.
Rescore?
Yeah. So rescore that. And so as that's rescored, those grouped underlines will come up. So one of the things that came up, Gustavo, was do the squiggly lines disappear that docs would have normally added to that? So is the only thing that the teacher sees at this point in time the correct spelling, punctuation, and grammar that we have identified? Is that right? So they don't get confused about both whatever Google Docs is firing at them and also what WriQ says?
Yeah, that's right. When you open WriQ, it automatically disables the underlines that Google Docs creates. Okay. So yeah, that's to avoid the confusion. And the same thing will happen on the student side. I will show you when they get the feedback. It's also, let's say, disabled while they're using the extension.
We're going to be talking at the very end here about, well, you've talked a lot about feedback, which is wonderful, but the other bit of feedback that I think sometimes we forget to talk about is what's important to us is here in the community, and educators, innovators, and trainers talking to us and saying, oh, we'd love it if it did this. One of the things that came, I know, from the community, Gustavo, was that it was great to have all this wonderful feedback going back that you're going to give to your students. But if you weren't telling them where those errors were, that was a bit of a problem. And that was one thing that we added quite recently to support them. A lot of the things that Gustavo's been through there come directly from the community, like the ability to decide what motivates your students and what doesn't. So, for example, Gustavo, I'd never heard you talk about the motivational part of the vocabulary aids, because lots of people said to me and previously, oh, I don't think my pupil or my student will find that motivating, that they can maybe be demotivated by that. So the ability to choose, I think is really good. So sorry, Gustavo, I couldn't stay quiet for much longer there, but I thought the speed of opening the extension and thinking, if you had a pile of 30 Google documents from an assignment that had been submitted back, how much this can speed things up is just brilliant. And that's the one piece of feedback we always get. And because we kind of go into all the features all the time, which I do exactly as well, and I always forget about that, but I thought it's useful to show people. So
No, it's
listen,
absolutely right, Paddy.
I'll be quiet for another 30 minutes now.
I
And
wouldn't
I'll go right
rush
back to
you. Don't
you.
worry. Come in whenever you have a comment. No, actually, that was very good. That happens. It's inevitable. You want to show step by step, and then
Of
yeah, you
course.
forget that it's actually something very quick. So that was good. Thanks for that. And yeah, and we can see everything as an image. That would be a summary. So when I clicked save, the image didn't appear. Why? Because by default, we're going to be sharing the feedback with the student using WriQ. So that means that when the student opens the document, we'll do that right now, and then opens WriQ, the feedback is going to be in WriQ. Now, if the student is not using WriQ for whatever reason, maybe because they're working at home and you don't want to be talking about new tools just yet, it's too much. So maybe you just want to give WriQ a go yourself now. There could be many reasons why that could happen. But if the student is not using the extension, well, that's whenever we can use the insert image. That's going to create this lovely summary here, and that's going to share. That's going to be, the student is going to be able to. I was just laughing at Kat's comment there. I would say pretty low, Kat. So that's the way the student is going to get the feedback if they are not using WriQ through an image. But we'll see that it's getting better and better to get the feedback using the extension, because the image obviously is static. With the extension, we can do many more things. So I'll show you how it looks from the other side. So what I will do is I'm going to tell WriQ by clicking the menu here that I am a student. I'm not anymore a teacher. I'm a student now. And I want to see how it looks from the other side. So I'm going to refresh the document. Now we're students, and we're just taking a look at the document that the teacher just sent back to us. Okay. So what I have is a Google Doc. I have now, if we talk about that question that you had there, Patty, initially we have the errors underlined by Google Docs by default. And I have the image with all the customized summary or feedback, the message, and all these lovely colors here related to the rubric. So if I want to see the feedback using WriQ, I maximize WriQ here, and then I've got this message here that says that I have feedback available. So I'm going to click on View Now, and this is how it looks. I have the date, my email, and I have my wonderful feedback there. And then I have the scores, the grades. In this case, remember, I decided to leave spelling and vocabulary age for the example. And I have as well a detail of the rubric. So there are two main differences with the image here. Number one is that the rubric, as you can see, is fully detailed. That's one thing that the image doesn't have. So here I can see the description for each of the levels, which is a huge part of the feedback, right? So that's very, very important. And the other thing is that if I wonder why I didn't get a grade level in focus, I can just hover the mouse over the next level and I can read the description there. So right away, I can tell what I lacked, why I didn't make it to the next level, and what I have to work on next time. And if I go up here, the other fundamental difference is that I can click this little toggle switch, and that's going to show me as a student where the errors in the document are. So remember, I had 47 spelling errors. Now I know where those spelling errors are in the document. So if we don't have that, it's a bit trickier because you have to guess pretty much where those spelling errors are. Okay, so that's, as Patty said, that's part of the feedback that we got from the community, that it would be very, very valuable to have those words highlighted, and there you go. So there are loads of things that we have done here because of the feedback we got from the community, such as customizing the feedback, ticking those boxes and selecting what metrics we're sharing with the students. So this is how they get the feedback, as simple as that. And we have 20 minutes left, so I think it's going to be enough, more than enough actually. I'll show you the other part of the student experience of WriQ. So for that, I'm going to open a blank document. So let's say I'm a student and I want to write something. I want to write an assignment, something that my teacher is asking for, or even just because just want to have some fun writing. So when I open my document, WriQ opens automatically. It's not gonna look like a sidebar in this case. It looks like this little box here. Okay, that's what we call the WriQ meter. And the only thing it does is it counts my writing bursts. Okay, what is a writing burst? It's basically how many words I can type without taking a pause or a break. Being a pause or a break, something around 2 or 3 seconds. Okay, so first of all, I'll show you super quickly how it works. So these, take a look at the WriQ meter. Is an example of a writing burst. Okay, so when I stop, couple of seconds, it goes back to 0. Okay, so that writing burst was composed by 11 words. That's as simple as that. That's a concept. So why is it there? Number one is that the writing burst is a very good indicator of our writing fluency. Imagine you are trying to learn a new language. So what we would like to achieve is that students, forget about that example because that's something that I was going to say later. So let's go back to a writing burst. So what we want, because the writing burst is a very good representation of our writing fluency, what we would like to see, or we would like to see that the average burst length of the students are getting longer and longer. Okay, so what we're doing with the WriQ meter is we're pretty much nudging the students to try to make those bursts longer and longer. So when we're writing something and we're stopping all the time to try to find errors, to make sure that everything is perfect, that has a massive impact in our ability for expressing our ideas, for getting there from here to that document on the screen. Because constantly I'm going to be interrupting that thought. Just try to make it, just put yourself that challenge. Try to write 1,000 words, but stopping to check every line you write. Or on the other hand, put all your ideas on the paper and then go back and check for errors and corrections, all your revision. So it has a massive impact on how much you can write, how comfortable you feel with the writing. And that's what we're trying with something very simple here to achieve in the students. And when I maximize this here, what I can see, it's a summary of a lot of things. This data is mine as a student. It's all for a personal best. So for example, if I go to the month, I can see my average burst length. So I can see how they've been trending over time. So what I would like to see is that they're getting longer. So I can play with that. It's a little bit of gamification. I can see how many words I have written, which can be super engaging, super motivating whenever I have put a lot of effort in writing. I can see all the information about my bursts. I can see what are the areas that I've been working on, and I can see the word cloud of those words that I've been using the most. So there's some information there that we believe, well, we see it already, that students really get engaged with one of these metrics. Some of them love the verse, some of them just want to get more and more words because they will get badges for that as well. So they get motivated differently, but we believe there's enough stuff there to engage them at a level that doesn't represent the risk of distracting them with too much information. So I mentioned the badges. If we open the menu here, I can see that there's an achievements gallery. And I've got a lot of badges here because I've been using WriQ for quite a while. So I've got badges before for the length of my writing burst. So that's part of playing with the WriQ meter. I can get badges as well for writing certain words, maybe about science or about math or English, and as well in general for how many words I have written. So 34,000 words, and then I have a nice phrase here linked to the story. Okay, so we see that kids are loving these badges, and As you can see, WriQ is not intrusive. It's not telling them how they should write, how things are done. We're just trying to give them a little nudge to engage them more and write more often, basically to practice the skill of writing, okay, with the idea of making them more fluent in writing. That's a concept. It's simple. You can always minimize the writing burst if you think that it could be a distraction. And that's it. That's as simple as a student extension is. Okay? And now I'll show you back to this teacher. I'll show you the dashboard. So I'm opening again the teacher side of WriQ just to show you how to go. Well, I didn't have enough words here to report something. So I'm gonna refresh here, 2 seconds. I just want you to see where the little button is located to access the dashboard. So when I open WriQ, here next to the X that we use to close the extension, we have that little dial or gauge, right? So that's where you click to access your dashboard. So I click there, and that opens my dashboard. It's going to ask you to sign in using your Google or your school account, and that's going to open your dashboard. So what I will do is I will show you a dashboard that is filled with dummy data. It's not student data, so don't panic. This is not a bunch of students' information that I'm disclosing publicly here. It's just a demo platform that actually would be great if we could share that, guys, because that dashboard is open for everyone. So you can access that and explore how WriQ shows you the data and all the power behind this data. So what you would do first when you open the dashboard is you would import your classes from Google Classroom. So with a couple of clicks, you click on the plus, WriQ asks you if you can, if you want to link your classrooms with WriQ. So you select those classes and boom, they appear there. That's the only thing you have to do here because all the data will be populated automatically. So that's it. All right. Once you do that, you will see your classes and all the average data for those classes, all the average data that's going to be available there because hopefully you will have already assessed some documents. So I can see how many students I have in that class, what's the year or grade, and a lot of average information in this period of time here. In this case, it's set between August and October 2019. So for that period of time, this is the average WriQ score. This is the average word count, pace, vocabulary, age, and accuracy. Okay, so I skipped a while ago the explanation about the WriQ score. So making it very simple, the WriQ score is a super powerful metric that we have created so you can have a quick understanding of how your students are writing. Remember, this reflects the mechanics of the writing. There's no content associated with the WriQ score. But by looking at that number, I'm able to compare classes right away. And it's a number that has been automatically calculated by WriQ. So you don't have to look at 15 different metrics and try to understand all the potential variables there. You just look at one number and it tells you very accurately how well those students are writing. And if you want to explore a little bit more about the WriQ score later on, I just noticed that this link is pretty awful, but let's see if it works here. You guys can share that as well. So some curious minds might want to read this. But basically, in a few words, what says in this blog is how we calculate the writing burst. Sorry, the WriQ score. We take into account the accuracy. It's not just as simple as spelling, punctuation, and grammar. There's a little bit more behind that, but it's basically accuracy. We take into account the maturity of the vocabulary of the students and the diversity of that vocabulary. Okay, and all of that is put together in a formula and gives us a number. And it's super powerful. In the US, we have so many users of WriQ already that we have been able to build a national norm. So I'm showing on screen the example of the US, and we are working on these for all different countries around the world. So what I can do with this is, for example, for grade 8, I know already that the WriQ score should be in this range. This is the average, and these are the percentiles. So it's a huge tool to predict how my students will perform by the end of the year, how well they're doing. If you are a school that's probably somewhere in Latin America or Europe and you are wanting to benchmark your students with the US, you already have a perfect way of benchmarking how well your students are writing compared to a native writer in the US. So that is huge. We didn't have this didn't exist before, a way of benchmarking with one number how well students are writing. So that's a WriQ score. And if I enter a class now, then the WriQ score makes a little bit more sense. I have all the metrics, all the averages for this period of time, August and October. But if I want to have a quick idea of how these students are performing, those could be too many metrics, and I can focus my attention initially on the WriQ score. So I could sort this column by WriQ score, and I can right away understand that Joshua is way ahead of the class. And I can see that the rest are pretty much very close, or between 101 and 112. But I can also identify that Jan maybe is struggling a little bit more than the rest. Why? Well, I could click on Jan and I would have access to a lot of information that WriQ has calculated for me. Remember, you don't have to do anything here. You don't even have to use the dashboard if this is too much. You could keep it close and just focus on the teacher experience and use it for assessing documents and giving feedback. But it's important that you know that by doing that, you have access pretty much for free to all of this information that can be very useful. So what I like to see here is, first of all, the trends, the vocabulary trend for Jan. I can see her vocabulary age trend as well, her accuracy trend. So I know that she's getting better. I know that whatever I'm working on with Jan is having a positive impact and she's doing better. If not, right away, I could identify by checking the documents and the dates, where is the area that she's struggling? Is she struggling with the words per minute, for example, the time on task, the time it takes her to work on a piece of work? Is it the vocabulary age? Maybe it's a new subject, maybe it's a new lesson, and she's really struggling after that period. There could be many reasons, obviously, but here you can understand why your students are struggling and focus your attention on those students. So a lot of information there. And finally, I'm not going to go in detail through this, but if you go to your dashboard here as well, you have a rubric section. And this rubric section is where you will create all the rubrics that you use. And they will be shown in the teacher experience when you select the year. So when you select year 7, 8, and 9, you will have this one visible. If I select college, I will see this one. So that way you don't get overwhelmed by a long list of rubrics when you click on the drop-down menu. All right, and you can share this just by clicking on these 3 buttons. You can click share. That's going to give you a URL, and you can share that whatever you want. So what many schools around the world are doing is they're creating pretty much a library. They create a sheet or a docs or a slides or a Google site, and they put the rubrics with the link, and all teachers have to do is click there and import them to their dashboards. So they are collaborating with the rubrics there, and you don't have to all work on doing the same thing many times. So those rubrics that have been shared with me appear here in this tab. This is going to change a tiny little bit because there's an update coming, but the idea remains the same, okay? And for creating the rubrics, you click here, and you have access to a very nice model. It's a very simple, friendly template. You put your title, you select the years, you add your columns and rows. I want 6 columns, 4 rows, and I fill it out. All my criteria, all my levels here, my descriptions, and my scores. It's a massive rubric of 6 by 4. Hopefully, you don't have to do something that big. And when you're done, you can click on save. That's you. You can always print them out very easily. I'm going a bit fast now because of the time, but I can print that out, save it as PDF. share with colleagues, or just for myself. Anything in the dashboard, you can print it out. So if you have a student profile, you can right click, print, and that can be very useful if you're going to have a parent's night, for example, and you want to share the feedback on a specific student, or just to discuss it with the student, or just if you're trying to gather evidence for some sort of decision. You can imagine the potential and all the information there is just handy for you. So it's a lot to cover in an hour, I know. Remember, don't feel too overwhelmed. You can start by using the teacher experience, use it to score documents, use it to save time, and to support your feedback with metrics that WriQ is preparing for you. When you feel ready, try it with your students, explore the dashboard, but start with the basics until you feel comfortable. And as we said initially, if you're interested in giving it a go, get it from the Chrome store. You'll have 30 days after you register. And if you want to have a pilot for your school, your district, get in touch with Patty, with myself, and we'll get you sorted. So Patty's back.
I'm back. I can see the look of horror on your face, Gustavo, every time I get added back in there. There's that initial bit of surprise, and then what's he gonna say? And all I was gonna say on that one, Gustavo, is to encourage the community to give us some feedback on it. But by all means, go to the Chrome store. Just Google it after tonight. Go to the Chrome store, download the extension, mark your first piece of work, because what I want people to realize is the extension is so powerful that it'll gather all those statistics. And yes, as you've said, it will gather some rich statistics. You can see it in dashboard, but start easy with it. Open up just a few Google Docs in Classroom as part of your workflow, or just a couple of random Google Docs. See what you can score. We'd love to see from the community and from those attending with GEG tonight exactly how many documents you can score. But do please try it. There's a lot to it. Take it a bit at a time. Gustavo, I'm going to ask you to go back to the previous slide there just to share some resources. So there is, don't worry that says pilot in it, guys. It's just a set of videos. So it's just a link to a YouTube playlist that Gustavo has put together, and it takes you through each one of those. So look, if you just want to figure out how to score a document and do it super fast, that will take you to the YouTube playlist, and the YouTube playlist will give you very, very short videos. What Gustavo said in probably less than 10 minutes, all of the videos, I think. But that will give you a really, really good run through. So please do that. And remember that Read and Write and Equatio PDF Reader, they're all available under our Free for Teachers text.help/FFT. WriQ isn't, but if you are a trainer or an innovator and you're on the GEG broadcast tonight, do watch out for an announcement within your community over the next few days at the start of next week, and we'll make sure we get you up and running as and when we can with all of the tools. Now, there's a couple of questions came in there, Gustavo. There was an interesting one from Louis, which was in and around when you were showing the WriQ meter. Does it work for dictation? And as you and I both know, the answer is no, but I'm guessing there's a reason behind that, Gustavo, from your perspective.
Yeah, that's right, Luis. Unfortunately, it does not. The explanation is just that the writing burst makes sense for a typing activity, right? It's because we're trying to measure a writing fluency. The concept works when you're typing. So it's not as simple as just putting that, make it equivalent for voice typing. So unfortunately, at the moment, it does not. And the other question that I can see from Luis Fernando here at the end is as well if it works in other languages. So again, me speaking Spanish, I would love it to work in Spanish. Unfortunately, it's not something that's going to happen in the short term. So I would have to say that for the moment, no, it only works in English. Hopefully in the future, we will be able to have that available in our languages, guys.
Gustavo, maybe one of the things maybe worth pointing out on that is the reason why. So it's not that we're being lazy on that or we're just busy. It's that WriQ. So lots of you attended tonight. this may be the first time that you see WriQ, you've heard of the extension, you maybe haven't tried it before. So it may appear as something new. It's actually we've had it out now officially only since, I guess, September was the official launch, but it has been around for nearly 3 years total now. And the reason in that delay is that what we had to make sure of is that as we measured pupil and student work, that we were getting it right. Quite frankly, that's what we needed to do. So what we did was we measured hundreds of thousands of student submitted pieces of work to the run up before we launched it. And actually, we've got to do that then for each language. So that's why it takes so long to actually put a language together. Unlike something like Read and Write, where we can speak very nicely to our wonderful team of developers, and suddenly it's Spanishified and it's Portugueseified and it's Italianified. Once we can incorporate languages very quickly in those products. But in this one, because we're measuring things that are quite mission critical, I guess, to progress for students, it just takes a lot longer.
Yeah, thanks for that explanation, but that's absolutely true.
So on that, Gustavo, if you pop your next slide up, I think everybody is itching to get in touch with you. And at the very least, everybody is itching to follow you on Twitter. I am just sorry that my Twitter handle isn't up there. I'm not getting enough followers lately. You're clearly sweeping up on the follower count on Twitter. Right. Hopefully you'll get a few after tonight. I would encourage everybody to reach out to Gustavo for anything that you need. And I'm definitely going to let Gustavo answer that question at the bottom, given that my multilingual ability stretches to English and Northern Irish, which is two very different languages, it has to be said, Gustavo. But don't forget, guys, that after tonight, tomorrow, we've got PDF readers. So we're going to be looking at how we make PDFs actionable and accessible. So how can students complete PDF worksheets and past papers and activities and use a range of annotation tools? That, again, is free for teachers, and that's also included if your district or school already has Read and Write. You'll already have this. You may not be aware that it's there. So we're going to cover that one tomorrow night. I am going to be back to doing most of the talking, Gustavo, tomorrow night, but I may have to draft you in after your performance tonight and get you on that case. So thank you. I will let you address Louis' comment on the screen because I wasn't quite sure what was said there.
Yeah, no, that was Louis just making a very valid point. That, yeah, I mean, it would be lovely to have WriQ in Spanish, and that unfortunately, yeah, we see that many extensions, many apps are available mostly in English and not fully support other languages. But I think that your explanation was pretty good, Patty. Like, it takes an extra mile here to include other languages, and hopefully we will. But it's good to know that it's not just a lack of will, but it's just a massive project.
I'm hoping, Gustavo, secretly that Louis is going to say, I have 100,000 pieces of student work that I could volunteer to you guys to kind of run your WriQ stats on it. So Louis, if you can help us out with that in any way, we'll be more than willing to talk a little bit further after tonight for sure. As a wrap up, I want to thank my friend and colleague, Gustavo. I always say friend and colleague for our team in Text Help because they're all such a great bunch of people to be working with. It's my pleasure to work with them all. So thank you, Gustavo, for that brilliant session tonight. And importantly, I want to thank GEG Global for inviting us this week. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I hope the next few days I'll enjoy it just as much. Don't forget text.help/FFT to get your free copy of Read and Write and Equatio, and reach out to Gustavo if you want to have a go at WriQ. But please, just go to the Chrome store this evening, download that extension and have a play with it on your first Google Doc. Gustavo will be such a happy man tomorrow morning if you do that. It will make his Thursday. So thanks GG, thanks community, and I'll certainly see you all again tomorrow evening / afternoon, depending on where you're coming to us across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to today's Global GEG presentation. Make sure you go to our website at globaljeg.org to find more information and ways to connect with us. One way you can connect with us is going to the website and joining our Google group. This will allow you to get a weekly email about upcoming events that Global GEG is hosting. Don't forget, you can share this recording with other educators or revisit it at any time at the same YouTube link. If you need a certificate of attendance, make sure you fill out the feedback form. Thank you again for joining us at Global GEG.